I used to think silence was strength. Now, sitting in my downtown office, the kind with glass walls and soft lighting, I realize silence was just my way of surviving. It's 8:47 a.m., and the city hums below me. My assistant just dropped off my almond latte, steam curling from the cup like a secret I'm still not ready to share. My phone buzzes once, twice, and then again a number I haven't saved, but one my body recognizes before my mind does.
Dad.
The name alone makes the air feel heavier. My throat tightens, the same way it did that night, the one I've spent years trying to forget. I let the phone ring out, but a voice message follows. I press play, and his tone, that same impatient bark, fills the quiet. Haley, it's your father. I think you should come home. Your mother isn't well. For a second, everything inside me pauses, the pen in my hand, the breath in my chest. I look out the window, watching people rush through crosswalks with coffees and briefcases, all moving somewhere they want to be.
Me?
I've built a life miles away from where I came from. But one voicemail is all it takes to pull me right back into that kitchen, where I was 17, gasping for air, and he was standing over me, yelling. My chest tightens again, but this time I know it's not an attack. It's memory clawing its way up. I was 17, the night my body forgot how to breathe. The kitchen light flickered above me, that cold, humming fluorescent bulb that made everything look harsher than it already was. Dinner had turned into an argument again. It always did. I don't even remember what started it, maybe my grades, or the fact that I'd missed curfew by 10 minutes. What I do remember is the way my dad's voice filled every corner of that house, bouncing off the walls until it felt like it was inside my chest. You think the world owes you something, Haley? You think being dramatic will fix anything. His voice was sharp, tired, like he'd been rehearsing disappointment his whole life. My mom stood by the sink, rinsing a plate that was already clean, pretending not to hear. At first, I thought it was just panic, that tight feeling that made it hard to get words out. But then my chest actually locked. My breaths came short, fast, shallow. The floor felt uneven, like I was standing on a ship. My vision blurred. Dad, I tried to say. I can't. But he didn't hear fear. He heard rebellion. You're fine, he snapped. Stop making a scene. I remember the tile cold against my knees as I sank down, the smell of burnt toast, the clock ticking above the fridge. My mother's eyes flicked toward me once, just once, before she looked away again. That was the worst part. Not his yelling, her silence. When it was over, when the world finally steadied again, I sat against the cabinet, shaking. My throat burned. My hands were red from pressing against the floor. He'd already gone upstairs. Mom brought me a glass of water and whispered, "You can't scare him like that, Haley. You know how he gets." I wanted to scream, but the words never came. They never did. Later that night, I went to my room and opened the drawer where I kept the only thing that ever felt like mine, a small leather journal my grandmother gave me before she passed. Inside the front cover, she'd written in soft, loopy cursive, "When they don't listen, write anyway." That sentence became my oxygen. So I wrote. About fear. About gasping. About the way love shouldn't feel like holding your breath. And as I wrote, I made a promise, quiet but fierce, that one day I'd leave that house and I'd never beg anyone to believe my pain again. I left home 3 months after graduation. No screaming match, no dramatic exit, just a note on the counter and a packed suitcase in the back seat of my old Corolla. The drive to Chicago took 9 hours. 9 hours of silence, cheap gas station coffee, and one thought looping through my head. Breathe. Just breathe. At first, it was hard. I worked at a diner off Wabash, serving pancakes to half-away commuters. I rented a studio the size of my childhood closet, peeling paint, a leaky faucet, and one window that faced a brick wall. But it was mine. And for the first time, the air didn't feel borrowed. Nights were the hardest. That's when the memories crept in, his voice, her silence, that kitchen floor. When panic tried to come back, I wrote. Just like Grandma said. One night, after a long shift, I was scribbling in my journal at a coffee shop when a woman stopped by my table. She had kind eyes and paint on her fingertips. "You write like someone who's trying to survive," she said. Her name was Margaret Hale, a creative writing professor at the university nearby. She became my first real mentor, the kind who doesn't try to fix your wounds, just helps you find meaning in the scars. She read my journal entries and told me, "These aren't just words, Haley. They're windows. Let people look through them." Margaret helped me apply for a writing scholarship. When I got it, I cried in her office, breathless again, but this time from disbelief. College was a battlefield in its own way, juggling classes, rent, and 3 part-time jobs. But I started to build something, stories that spoke for the girl who couldn't that night. My short essays about mental health started getting shared online. One even got featured in a local magazine. That's when an email changed everything. A small publishing house wanted to meet. They'd read my essay the night my father taught me how to hold my breath and wanted to discuss a collection. I didn't tell my family. Not a word. On social media, I posted simple things: sunsets, coffee cups, city streets. Never awards, never milestones. They thought I was just getting by, maybe working a modest office job. But within 3 years, Beneath the Quiet, my first book, hit the bestseller list. It was raw, messy, full of fragments from a girl on a kitchen floor. Readers wrote letters saying my words helped them name their pain. And when the money started coming in, I built something no one could take away, my own publishing imprint, Silverline Press, named after the edge of Grandma's silver locket. Every book I published for someone else felt like breathing for the first time, again and again. Still, I never reached out to Dad. I couldn't, because I knew the moment he found out, he'd call it luck, not work. So I stayed silent, not out of fear this time, but choice. 2 weeks after that voicemail, I was standing in the lobby of my publishing office, polished marble floors, quiet jazz playing from ceiling speakers, and my reflection staring back at me from the glass doors. "Haley," my assistant said softly, "your parents are here." The words hung in the air like a ghost I wasn't ready to see. I hadn't seen them in almost 8 years. Not once. Not through college, not after the book, not after the interviews or awards. And now, here they were, standing awkwardly by the reception desk like they'd stumbled into the wrong universe. Mom looked smaller than I remembered, her hands clasped tight around her purse strap. Dad's hair had grayed, his shoulders still square, eyes sharp, the same ones that used to turn every word into a warning. For a moment, no one spoke. Then he said, "You've done well for yourself, I see." His tone was clipped, half pride, half surprise. I smiled politely. "Would you like a tour?" We walked past framed book covers lining the walls, each one bearing the Silverline Press logo. My employees greeted me with warm smiles, addressing me as Ms. Brooks. I could feel my father's confusion growing with each hallway. When we reached my office, I opened the door and stepped aside. The room was flooded with light, tall windows, shelves filled with manuscripts, and on the center desk, a glass case holding my grandmother's locket. Dad scanned the space, eyes landing on the plaque behind my chair. Haley Brooks, founder and CEO, Silverline Press. His mouth parted. Just slightly. "You own this place?" I nodded. "Built it from scratch." He let out a low whistle, trying to mask a shock. "Didn't think writing could pay the bills." I smiled, not mockingly, just quietly. Neither did I. Until I stopped writing for approval and started writing to breathe. Mom sat down slowly, her eyes darting between us. "Your father didn't mean..." I stopped her gently. "It's okay, Mom. I know what he meant." Dad folded his arms. "You could have told us." I looked at him, the man who'd once told me pain was performance. "Would you have listened?" Silence. Heavy, old, familiar. I walked to the window, resting a hand on the cool glass. "That night you thought I was pretending. I wasn't. I couldn't breathe, Dad. And when you yelled, it felt like the world agreed with you, that I was just making it up." He shifted uncomfortably. I didn't know it was that serious. I turned back to face him. "That's the point. You didn't want to know." For a long minute, The only sound was the city traffic below. Then, softer than I expected, he said, "Your mother's been reading your books." She said some of those stories felt familiar. Mom's eyes glistened. "I knew, Haley. I knew what you were writing about. I just couldn't face it back then." Her voice cracked, and I felt something inside me. Not forgiveness yet, but space for it. I gestured toward the locket on my desk. Grandma told me to keep writing, no matter who listened. Guess she knew what she was talking about. Dad stared at it. Then at me. His jaw clenched, pride wrestling with guilt. Finally, he said, "You've made something real, kiddo. I can see that now." For the first time, I didn't need his approval. But hearing it even late didn't hurt. I smiled faintly. "Welcome to Silverline Press." He nodded slowly, eyes wandering around the office, absorbing a truth he'd never imagined. The girl on the kitchen floor was gone. The woman before him had rewritten the ending. We sat in my office for what felt like hours after that. The sunlight shifted across the room, softening from gold to amber. My father's posture slowly relaxed, his eyes scanning the framed photos on my shelf, snapshots of book launches, handwritten thank you notes from young writers, and one photo of me and Margaret at my first signing. Mom reached for her tea. Her hands trembled slightly, the cup clinking against the saucer. "Your father didn't come here to upset you, Haley," she said. "He just thought maybe we could start again." Dad exhaled sharply. "Your mom's right." "I know I wasn't," he paused, searching for a word that didn't sound like weakness. "There. Not the way I should have been." I looked at him, really looked. The man who once loomed over me now looked smaller somehow, not because he'd changed, but because I had. "Starting again," I said slowly. "That sounds simple, but it's not." He nodded, eyes down. "I figured as much." I stood and walked to the locket on my desk, running my thumb over its silver surface. "If we're going to rebuild anything, there have to be conditions." He frowned. "Conditions?" "Yes," I said calmly. "Not punishments. Just terms of peace." He leaned back, wary but listening. "First," I said, "you have to stop pretending emotions make people weak. If you can't talk about what hurt you, you'll keep hurting everyone else." He opened his mouth, then closed it. Mom gave him a look that said, "Listen." "Second," I continued, "you and Mom need to go to therapy together. You both have ghosts that never got names. I'm not coming back into that house until it's safe to breathe in it." Mom's eyes filled, but she nodded without hesitation. "We will," she whispered. I turned to her. "And you have to start using your voice. No more staying quiet to keep the peace. It cost both of us too much." She looked stunned, then quietly said, "Maybe I forgot what having one felt like." I smiled gently. "Then find it again. For you." Dad cleared his throat. "And what about me?" I looked at him, my tone soft but unyielding. "You learn to listen. No yelling. No walking away. If I say I'm in pain, you don't tell me I'm fine. You ask me what I need." He stared at the floor. "That might take some time." "I know," I said. "Healing does." The room went quiet again, but it wasn't the suffocating kind of silence I grew up with. This one had air in it. After a while, I added one last condition. "There's a support group I fund for families dealing with mental health, parents and children learning to communicate again. I'd like you both to attend. Not because I need you to, but because you need to." Mom nodded almost instantly. Dad hesitated, pride flickering, then finally said, "If it helps fix what I broke, I'll be there." I exhaled slowly, feeling something release inside me. "This isn't about fixing," I said softly. "It's about learning to breathe together this time." Dad looked up at me, the daughter who once couldn't draw a full breath without apology, and for the first time, he didn't look disappointed. He looked human. 3 months later, I met them again, same city, different air. We chose a quiet cafe by the river, one with floor-to-ceiling windows and soft acoustic music humming in the background. Mom waved when she saw me. Her posture was lighter, her smile a little braver. Dad stood awkwardly, hands in his pockets, wearing the same brown jacket I remembered, but his eyes looked gentler. We talked. Not about the past, not right away. About the weather, the books on the cafe shelf, the dog that kept circling under tables looking for crumbs. But beneath it all, there was something new, effort. Halfway through coffee, Dad cleared his throat. Your mom and we've been going to those meetings, he said. It's strange. Sitting in a room full of people who admit they don't have it figured out. He gave a half laugh. Turns out I'm one of them. Mom squeezed his hand. He even talks about feelings now, she teased softly. I smiled. Progress. He looked at me, serious now. Haley, I read your book. All of it. I had to stop halfway through because it felt like you were talking to me. And I didn't like what I heard. But I needed to. I didn't realize I was crying until he reached across the table, hesitant, almost unsure, and said, I'm sorry for not seeing you. For not hearing you. You weren't making a scene. You were asking to be seen. My breath caught, not from panic this time, but from release. I just wanted you to believe me, I whispered. I do, he said. Now I do. Outside, the wind picked up, brushing against the window. The sound reminded me of home. Not the house I left, but the one I built within myself. When we said goodbye, Mom hugged me tight, slipping something into my palm. It was my grandmother's silver locket, the same one I kept on my desk, but now a twin piece she'd found at the old house. Inside was a tiny note in Grandma's handwriting. Keep breathing, sweetheart. The world needs your voice. As I walked back to my car, I caught my reflection in the glass. Not the girl on the kitchen floor, not even the woman behind the desk, just someone whole. For years, I thought strength meant silence. Now, I know it means speaking even when your voice shakes. I took a deep breath, let it fill every corner of me, and smiled. He told me I was fine. I whispered to myself. But today, I finally am.